Reconnect and heal today. Welcome to Love Never Dies with Dr. Jamie Turndorf.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Love Never Dies Radio and Dr. Turndorf Turn on the Love. So I have a couple questions for you. Are you just plain worn out and wonder if it's your hormones? Do you have any questions about menopause and hormone replacement? Have you heard that hormones cause cancer and heart disease? And therefore, are you worried that it's dangerous to take a hormone supplement? Well, in today's show, we're going to dive into Dr. Yoho's new book, Hormone Secrets, which is a wonderful book, and explain how hormone supplementation can potentially treat or improve longevity, cancer, general health, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and even obesity. And we're going to clear up all the controversies for you. By the time you're done with our show today, you're going to know more about hormones than 99% of the doctors out there. So stay with me. And this way, when you go to your doctor, you're going to be armed with exactly what you need to ask for. And even Dr. Yoho will help you find a doctor who can help you. My guest, Robert Yoho, is an award-winning author who spent a career studying and prescribing hormones. He's retired, so he can tell you the truth. He now calls himself a healthcare whistleblower whose mission it is to expose insurance, big pharma, and medical specialty wrongdoing. And he says, hint, big pharma and big money are involved, and you have been listening to lies. Robert Yoho was a board-certified emergency physician and cosmetic surgeon who practiced medicine in the U.S. until he retired 2 years ago. He recently published 2 books, Butchered by Healthcare and Hormone Secrets. So without further ado, welcome back. So glad to have you.
Jamie, thank you for the gracious introduction. And since we're all doctors here, we're first names, right?
Exactly.
Okay, nice.
You can call me Bob. Call me Bob.
So, sorry, I've got to do the disclaimer, right? This
know.
is not individual healthcare. You know, there are too many lawyers around not to do these stupid disclaimers, but this is not individual healthcare. Use this information at your own risk. I studied all this stuff for 4 years and have my whole medical career behind me to inform it. But we've got to say that you need a doctor or other healthcare provider if you want to take advantage of any of this.
All right. So now I'm interested, and you talk about it in the book, but for those who haven't yet read your book, Hormone Secrets, can you talk about what prompted you to expand your surgical practice to include hormone supplementation?
So I was, my practice was almost entirely women. I was a cosmetic surgeon, and they were having poor sleep, fatigue, hot flashes, muscle wasting, and irritability. And, the ones over 50 a lot of them were in terrible shape. And although there are women who can essentially compensate for anything, they're very tough. And you can't even tell how miserable they are on the outside until you pass before them a little survey and ask them about their symptoms, and they're just holding on by their fingernails. And so most plastic surgeons operate on a string of depressed patients, or they call them depressed, but they're, a string of menopausal patients, often over 50, and never inquire about their, about their hormonal status or the reasons. And, sometimes they refer them to psychiatrists and they give them these toxic antidepressants. But I felt compelled to attempt to treat my patients. So I took training, and for the last 2 decades, I offered hormonal hormones, bioidentical hormones to the appropriate candidates if they were interested. And I never try to convince anybody of anything. If they weren't interested, it's like, okay, right? It's like arguing with Germans. I'm a German, so I get to say that. You get it? So what I did is I offered a treatment that they had to take for 2.5 months if they agreed to that. And that was a testosterone pellet. Now, testosterone gets broken down to estrogen. And I knew that the big problem with medical care is compliance, and that up to 1/3 of all drugs get thrown away and never taken. Even things like kidney transplant anti-rejection drugs get thrown in the wastebasket, and people have, they ruin their chances after all that surgery and all that nonsense. So with the hormonal pellet that I could easily put in without a scar through the belly button during the surgery, and it not even charging anybody, because it cost me $15 and they were paying me for a surgical procedure. So I gave them the chance to try the hormone therapy, and this is conventional, just use testosterone. And I mean, I saw a string of near miraculous results, and it completely convinced me that hormone therapy was a wonderful thing. And I felt compelled to dig into it a little further. And I did my homework for several years, and finally wrote Hormone Secrets, which essentially is an expose of a medical industry that is devoted to hiding things that are inexpensive, that are generic, that are bioidentical, because they don't make money. I mean, they are promoting toxic drugs, in many cases drugs that barely work or don't work, and they're patented, and the FDA is almost a sock puppet that goes along with the whole thing, promotes fraudulent studies with the drug companies. So that's the basis of my other book, Butchered by Healthcare, but we're talking about the hormones today. So that's the background about what I was doing.
Right. And since you were mostly doing cosmetic surgery on women, you were supplementing women, but men are in the same boat. Men need help too. Men's testosterone drops, and in addition to the testicles dropping, which is actually a symptom of low T, right?
I don't know about that, but no, it's absolutely true. Men get wonderful results from hormone supplementation, but my primary experience is with women, because cosmetic surgery patients are probably 90+% women. But I do have experience with men, and I have been on testosterone therapy myself for decades. I'm 68 now, so it's appropriate for anyone who has symptoms, over a certain age. It has some disadvantages for men. The only real disadvantages are infertility. So if you're still starting a family, it's a mistake to get on testosterone therapy. And if you have the cream, you can accidentally rub that on a young child, or it can even get on the bed sheets and cause problems if you have your kids and you're jumping bed with you. So that can cause early maturation, which is horrible for a little kid. Yeah.
Horrible. Now, people hear, oh my goodness, if you've had cervical cancer, you can't use estrogen, and that you debunk that misconception as well, right?
So consistent with what the games industry has played for decades, a huge study called the Women's Health Initiative, which some of your listeners may have heard of, which was nearly $1 billion, cost nearly $1 billion, was manipulated in order to discredit the drugs. And it was completely this whole thing. I mean, it created a media storm when the thing came out in the early 2000s, because these drugs, which we had trusted for, some of them for 120 years. Thyroid's been around 120 years, for which we had this enormous clinical experience. It was a man bites dog story. And everybody figured that the study was proper because the statistical manipulations in the study looked proper to the doctors, right? They said, oh, the numbers make sense. But it's a GIGO situation, garbage in, garbage out. They were studying obsolete drugs. The new drugs are bioidentical, in other words, identical to the human body's drugs. And the study was of horse urine estrogen and synthetic Provera, which is progesterone, which is called Provera. And these drugs have some small statistical problems. They're not as bad as the study made them out or the press made them out. And the media storm and the nonsense continues to this day, despite the academics debunking the Women's Health Initiative almost entirely.
Right. And from what I understand and from what I've read, your body may have problems with the synthetic hormones, but with the bioidenticals, your body recognizes them as being very close to what we produce naturally. And so they don't have the side effects that the synthetic prescription pharmaceutical hormones do.
Well, yes, that's exactly right. The synthetics are actually much better than they have been purported to be by this study in the media. I mean, the problems that they produced, I mean, their breast cancer was detected statistically with the use of the synthetic progesterone. Provera, not with the horse urine estrogen, which causes some side effects, but is basically very safe, promotes good heart health, and so on and so forth. But the problems are relatively small, and these drugs should now never be used chronically. They're still being advertised, though. I mean, it's the sickest thing I've ever seen in my life. They're being advertised for chronic use for menopausal women, and they're a lot better than nothing, but they're nowhere near as good as the bioidenticals, which are they're readily available from compounding pharmacies.
Right.
Doctors, yeah.
Right. And you said something in your book, which is interesting, that the transdermal, that is to be applied on the skin, hormone, the estrogens, the transdermal estrogens, even the bioidentical ones, don't protect against blood clots.
They don't protect against heart disease. Okay. Now, the big advantage of estrogen, estradiol is like the central hormone. I mean, a lot of people in this field think that the reason why testosterone is so good is it gets broken down to estrogen. Right. The main effects of testosterone are another testosterone-like compound that it gets broken down to, and estradiol. So, I mean, the transdermals are used by a large swath of the medical community, and they give them to their patients because they've never been shown to cause some of the other problems, but they also don't protect against heart disease. And heart disease protection is what estradiol or estrogen is all about. I mean, it's one of the largest benefits. I mean, it's so if you can tolerate the oral compounded bioidentical estradiol, that's the best one to take. And you can, I mean, my wife is on both, which is, it's one of the central rules here about hormone supplementation is that the big problem is not getting too much, it's getting too little. And it's very, very hard to overdose or take too much of any of this stuff. Now, I'm not saying not to be cautious, and I'm not saying not to work with a physician, but the general rule is that the doses are too conservative to do much good. So,
and also it can be dangerous. Like if you take too little progesterone, you can become estrogen dominant.
The big problem is taking too little of this stuff. And estrogen dominance produces psychological syndromes and irritability and all that stuff, and, you know, acne and all kinds of stuff. But maybe we ought to just run over the names quickly at the beginning here, just to, you're in Florida, you've got some bugs there.
I wasn't waving, I was saying to the bug.
No, I know. I lived in Ohio most of my youth. So just to run over the names, estradiol is the natural bioidentical estrogen, right? It's available in a patch, pill, or cream. And it has brand names, you know, like Climera, Vivel-Dot, and all these things. The undesirable, the fakes, the horse urine estrogen are Premarin, Ogen, and others. Okay, progesterone, if you say progesterone, Prometrium is a branded bioidentical progesterone, but generally the compounders give you a progesterone, and that's what they call it. Provera and other progestins are the fakes, right? Testosterone is bioidentical, right? The cream is bioidentical. The injectable form is not bioidentical, but it immediately gets broken down to a bioidentical form in the body. And there's two kinds, cypionate and propionate for injectable. There are proprietary gels and patches, but they're not strong enough. The thyroid, the pork thyroid is the best. That's like Armour thyroid, and that contains two components, both T3 and T4. The levothyroxine or the synthroid may not work as well for some people. In theory, the T4 gets converted to T3, but in practice, it's not perfect. Right. So I hope that wasn't too technical for the listeners.
No,
but
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, this is something, you know, you and I had a little chat about a week ago, and when we were talking about the different ways that hormones are tested, the salivary or spit testing, the urinary testing, and you talked about preferring blood testing. So this is something I didn't ask you, and this has been on my mind. So, you know, if you take a blood sample, you're getting a snapshot of your hormone profile at that moment. Now, if you're in menopause and very low in everything, that snapshot is going to be adequate, right? And I'm going to see the progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, it's all low. But if you're treating someone who's perimenopausal, or you're looking at someone who might have profound adrenal fatigue where the cortisol levels fluctuate throughout the day, a single blood test is not going to show you the fluctuations. So how, that's where, like, if they do the 24-hour urine for free cortisol, you're looking at what's happening in the midday, the early morning, late at night. So what do you think about what I'm saying regarding looking at the fluctuations?
Okay, this is an important point. The salivary testing is a reasonable test for a screening test when you've never taken hormones, but after you've taken hormones, it's unreliable. And it's true, the blood levels vary, depending on how long after a test you draw the blood, right? So if you take a testosterone shot, it'll be low at a week. If you take it once a week, it'll be low at a week and very high the day afterwards. But this tends to even out, and knowing the time after the dose is important. And the general rule is to check the blood about 6 hours after the dose. And so it's not, taking these hormones is not just as natural as having them secreted by your glands. They do fluctuate, but it's way better than nothing. I mean, we've got, here's a list of the things that hormone supplementation can slow or prevent: Alzheimer's disease, and we can get into that, heart disease, fatigue, depression, sleep disturbance, anxiety, irritability, bone loss, osteoporosis. With increased chance of fractures, it decreases that. Skin problems, including skinning, thinning, wrinkling, itching, sagging, and easy injury, thinning of joint cartilage, vaginal area difficulties, dry, thin, inelastic vagina, spontaneous urination during coughing or lifting, and sexual decline, including painful sex. So,
and shouldn't we also mention the thinning of the joint cartilage, tooth loss, gum disease, and memory problems, right?
Exactly. Alzheimer's is
all memory problems.
The story with Alzheimer's is not well known by physicians, but there are 75 references I put in an appendix of Hormone Secrets that demonstrate that Alzheimer's is decreased up to 85% if women start estrogen at the age of menopause. And I mean, it's a profound improvement. We're using these drugs that cost thousands of dollars a month, and they don't work. And I don't even think the people who came up with the drugs would claim that they're very good. It's just, they've got side effects, and the companies have been sued and settled for, millions and millions of dollars because of their malfeasance. And I mean, it just goes on and on. It's a ridiculous story. It's just incredible that we're even using these things.
It's horrible, but it's like you said, big pharma. You can't, there's really no money in the bioidenticals. They're very inexpensive.
Yeah, we spend 3 times since a deal was made that the Medicare could not negotiate with big pharma for their prices. The deal was struck in the early 2000s that they would pay 106% of the wholesale price, and that enabled them to price fix. And we now pay 3 times what other countries pay for our proprietary drugs. And they're the best drugs on the market, but they're unaffordable, and they only represent about 5% of all the drugs sold in the United States now, because they're all generics. Because we've been price gouged out of the use of the best quality manufactured drugs. It's an incredible story.
Unbelievable. I always talk about magnesium being needed in over 1,040 enzymatic reactions. And magnesium is really the precursor for the formation of your hormones, among many, many other things. And everyone is deficient in magnesium. So
I finally tried that last night, and I slept through the night.
There you go.
Which I don't know whether it was chance or what, but
it wasn't
I'm going to try
chance.
it some more.
It wasn't chance, because, and this is what prompted me to write that PTSD book, because I was very friendly with a 4-time Afghanistan war vet. He was also a New York State trooper, and the guy had not slept for 14 years. And I gave him the electrotransdermal magnesium, and he slept for the first time in 14 years. Because it's a central nervous system tranquilizer, and because it's transdermally delivered, goes right into the bloodstream, and you have that tranquilization effect. I'm very glad to hear you slept.
Yeah, well, I typically don't sleep through the night, and I get up and I plot and I think and I get agitated, and then I go back to sleep.
Exactly. And, in some respect, all your beautiful creations are the result of waking up and thinking and writing. But it's better that you do sleep, and it's so much better for your body and your immune system, as you well know. So, I was just thinking, because you're the first, this is the first time I'm mentioning this on air. So I'm going to be the first to tell you, everyone watching and listening, I'm going to return the name of the show, Ask Dr. Love. That's my original website since 1995. That's my brand, my trademark. And I'm returning to Ask Dr. Love because this is my original mission, to help people overcome the blocks to loving themselves and others. And now more than ever, we really, really desperately need to connect. The world is crazy, and we have to find that way of reconnecting and connecting with our loved ones on the earth plane, on the spirit realm. We need connection. And I was thinking that hormone imbalance is so linked to relationship disconnection, right? Because when you are irritable, you're just not in a space to be in a loving state and in a connected state. So hormones are really important for your relationships.
My wife interviewed, I don't know, thousands and thousands of women during our hormone practice over decades, and she watched the results I got with the hormone supplementation, even including just testosterone alone, and she was convinced that well over half of the divorces were caused by menopause. Because
and not just the dyspareunia, that is the painful sex, so that the husband says, I got to go out and look for a younger model because your VJ is off limits to me because of painful sex, but just also the irritability and everything. It's a real problem. And the bioidentical hormones really, and especially if you combine it with the magnesium, really chill you out.
Here's a quick tip about painful sex. Sometimes oral hormones or transdermal or even injectable pellet hormones don't fix that, and you need local improvements. So we have a combination DHEA and estradiol vaginal inserts, and if those are given in a large enough concentration, that does the trick a couple times a week, and
yes.
the whole area.
I've even heard that some women have results just with the DHEA. If they, for whatever reason, can't tolerate or are afraid to use the estrogen, the DHEA can do it in a vaginal suppository.
Yes, that's correct.
Well,
sometimes you need a local effect with the drug administered locally, even if you are taking adequate doses of estradiol and testosterone and progesterone.
You sometimes have to directly treat the VJ.
The VJ. Now that's a good euphemism. I'll have to remember that.
The VJ. So we're going to just take a quick break, but we'll be back in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Be back with you.
Love Never Dies is now on the Dream Vision 7 radio network every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Dr. Jamie Turndorf, also known as Dr. Love, is the #1 international best-selling author of Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased. If you're grieving the loss of a loved one, tune in and find out how to reconnect and heal any unfinished business using Dr. Turndorf's groundbreaking new Dialoguing with the Departed technique. Visit AskDrLove.com to find out more.
Hi, it's Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Did you know all it takes is one stress, one accident, or one illness to trigger PTSD? Did you know that all the stress associated with the pandemic has created what I call the new global PTSD pandemic stress syndrome? And don't be so quick to say, I don't have PTSD, because many conditions like depression, anxiety, pain syndrome, sleep disorders, and sexual dysfunctions are actually PTSD in disguise. And don't be fooled. Even after the pandemic is behind us, your PTSD will not go away by itself. Don't despair. In my latest book, If You Think You Don't Have PTSD, Think Again, I share a simple, research-backed, drug-free remedy for reversing the global PTSD pandemic stress syndrome. This is a solution your doctor doesn't likely know about. Read If You Think You Don't Have PTSD, Think Again today, and be on the road to recovery right away.
If you think you don't have PTSD, Think Again became a #1 international bestseller within 24 hours of its publication. Grab your copy on Amazon and find out why.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
You're listening to Love Never Dies with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. If you yearn to get along better with your life partner or spouse, friends, family members, and even coworkers, Dr. Turndorf's book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, Dr. Love's 10 Simple Steps to Cooling Conflict and Rekindling Your Relationship, shows you how to turn conflict into connection for a lifetime of lasting love. Find out more about Kiss Your Fights Goodbye at AskDrLove.com. This is Love Never Dies with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. This show is for you, the listener. Once again, here's Dr. Turndorf.
Welcome back to Love Never Dies Radio on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. And I told you, Robert, and I guess I might as well say that my Ask Dr. Love radio show is going to be syndicated on 5 of the top 10 radio networks in the United States. So that new syndication is going to bring me back to the Ask Dr. Love name. And I just automatically said Love Never Dies, but we're going to go back to Ask Dr. Love. And it's a big, big thing. It's great.
This means I'm going to be famous too, right?
Yeah, baby.
Okay.
So, and you're going, and I'll put information out on the newsletter. We're going to be in the main top markets, Atlanta, New York City, and I'll tell you more about it. So did you just text me while we were during the break? This is crazy. You cannot believe this. I just got this text and I thought it was from you. I am so flabbergasted. They also make bioidentical progesterone lozenges, been taking for years, was involved with progesterone program in Boston years ago, and take DHEA. Someone's texting me this.
Yes.
But yes, the progesterone lozenges are taken at bedtime. Oh, it's Deborah, the syndicator of Dream Vision 7. People take progesterone lozenges at bedtime because it has a sleep-inducing effect.
Okay, let me clarify that. Progesterone comes in lozenges and in a capsule, right? And both are obtained from a compounder because they're not patentable and Big Pharma doesn't make them. And actually, the most sleep-inducing effect is with the capsules. The lozenges are good to take during the day, and progesterone is almost completely harmless for women. And you, depending on how bad your symptoms are, you can take hundreds and hundreds of milligrams. I mean, you start with 100 milligrams, but you can take 600 or 800 milligrams or even 1,000 milligrams a day, and you increase your dose against your symptoms until you feel great. And it really helps irritability and a lot of other symptoms, improves sexuality along with the estrogen, and protects against breast and uterine cancer, which is a wonderful effect.
Yes, and you never want to take estrogen unopposed, that is without progesterone. That's not good. Even bioidentical estrogen shouldn't be taken without progesterone.
This is one of the few caveats about hormone care that you have to know. And if you take estrogen alone, you can get in trouble if you have a uterus. The uterine cancer is stimulated, but if you take progesterone along with the estrogen, your uterine cancer chances drop to below what it would be if you took nothing. So, and the other interesting caveat is that you should definitely take progesterone anyway, if you can tolerate it, along with the estrogen, even if you don't have a uterus, because progesterone has good effects, and you don't want to miss those.
But you say that the transdermal progesterone doesn't provide all the benefits that you get from capsules or lozenges.
Okay, so you can't get decent blood levels with transdermal progesterone. I mean, you'd have to slather yourself with that 4 or 5 times a day to keep your blood levels up. It just doesn't seem to work. Testosterone, on the other hand, you can use testosterone cream. Women can use testosterone cream even 2 or 3 times a week, and their levels stay relatively high, and they get the good positive effects.
And they don't get the facial hair growth.
Well, you know,
That is
some
a
of
side
them,
effect, right?
well, yeah, I mean, you can get acne and facial hair with testosterone. Women can get it too, but the positive effects, the life prolonging effects, the good effects on your sexuality, all those other things are the trade-off. So there are a lot of women that put up with a little bit of acne, and it's sort of like when they're being a teenager again. I mean, your hormone levels are high, and they put up with a little bit of hair growth, and you get it removed with laser hair removal or whatever, or epilation, and so those are side effects, but they're very mild. There's not any huge health problems with
Right.
it.
And I've read also that testosterone is implicated in higher sex drive in both men and women. Oh, what?
Of course. Yeah.
Right?
Just, you know, you can't convince anyone of anything. And, you know, until they try it themselves or come around to their own. But testosterone has a profound effect on both men and women's sex drive. And the women that who's given me permission to insert that testosterone pellet are many times
Just the pellet.
The pellet works super well for
Yeah.
testosterone use in women. For men, you have to put too many pellets in. They need like 20 times the dose for women, and it's logistically difficult.
So what do you do for men if you can't put 20 pellets in them? What do you do?
Weekly or bi-weekly shots, or
Shots.
or cream. Cream has to be applied twice a day, which is a hassle, and you can't expose your family or your wife or anyone. You know, sometimes the partners get enough testosterone, or maybe sometimes get too much testosterone from just their exposure to the men. So the caveat is you wait several hours before you have close, intimate contact with anyone, and you certainly don't want to get it anywhere near a pre-adolescent child.
So, but whereas you said progesterone cream does not provide adequate blood levels, that's not the case with the testosterone cream.
Exactly. Yeah, progesterone cream is widely touted by a variety of sources, including Suzanne Summers, who's promoted the Wiley method. And the Wiley method is all bioidentical, but there's a couple of things that they could be doing better, and that is oral progesterone. Would be much better.
It's funny because a lot of people think, oh, if you take testosterone, you will improve your erectile function. But the research says that is not true. It increases your desire, but it doesn't really improve erections.
Jamie,
what? You didn't see this coming, right?
That's a subtlety that I've never been able to personally grasp.
Well, Dr. Love goes deep, deep, deep into these topics.
Really?
But for real, that there could be desire, but they can't get it up. And that is probably, I'm thinking, connected more to arterial problems. You know, maybe the blood flow isn't reaching the penis very well. So the testosterone might increase the desire. But see, I think whenever guys are having erectile dysfunction, they should really take a look at their whole circulatory system, their arteries, you know?
Well, you know, atherosclerosis and blocked arteries certainly are a problem. But
Yeah, I'm killing you. You didn't know what was
coming.
No,
that's all right.
You're rolling with it. Yeah. So, you know what I was thinking would be kind of interesting, because your knowledge is so great on the topic. If we ticked off a little more information about the specifics, like, for example, you know, you have a list of all the things that are improved by bioidentical hormones. So the first is longevity, right? And maybe you could just speak a little more about that. And then we could talk a little bit about cancer, general health, all that. Yeah.
Okay. So there are cancers which actually can be effectively treated with hormones, right? We have the old treatment for prostate cancer, disseminated prostate cancer or metastatic prostate cancer, before we had these expensive testosterone blockers, was actually synthetic estrogen, and that worked very well. And we have and it works over a longer period of time than the hormone blockers. The hormone blockers work for a while, and then they stop working. And they have the horrible side effect of crashing your testosterone levels, and you lose all the beneficial effects of testosterone. So, and I have friends who are getting prescribed bioidentical estrogen for their disseminated prostate cancer, their metastatic, and I mean, their PSAs have dropped to nothing, and they're doing very, very well. It's not a magic pill or a magic treatment, but it's another thing that people should know about. But it's suppressed by the vast amount of information about the proprietary drugs that's available. The link farms on the internet.
I think also the increase in testicular cancer and prostate cancer and all of this is connected to the xenoestrogens in our environment, that is the false estrogens that are so linked to cancer, and the parabens, the methylparabens, the plastics, and these things are so linked to cancer, right? And they're false estrogens. Yet, when you take a bioidentical estrogen, you are blocking the development of the cancer. So what do you see as the difference?
Well, I don't know. I'm afraid I don't know anything about that subject, so I can't really comment about that. But I got a lot of other stuff I can blow-bait about, Jamie. It's no problem. Cool. I'm full of all kinds of ideas.
Knowledge. So you talk about how bioidentical hormones increase longevity. So maybe you could just say, and they also prevent premature death.
Right.
Is there more you could say about that?
Yeah. Absolutely. But let me back up and give the other obvious example of a cancer that can be treated with. And this one should be widely known. It's just, I don't know how it's getting suppressed, but it's an outrage. Metastatic breast cancer can be treated with testosterone, and it works very, very well. And there's a doctor in the Midwest who gives testosterone pellets along with some blockers, right? It's being treated with estrogen blockers by traditional doctors. But these estrogen blockers have the same problems as testosterone blockers. They shove you into menopause, and some people think you die sooner because of heart disease and other menopause symptoms. So this sounds like science fiction, but testosterone and progesterone used together have a tremendous effect on metastatic breast cancer. And I have a friend who ended up with another doctor who is being treated. And I mean, she was using a walker. She was down to 100 pounds. And the whole thing reversed inside of a few months with testosterone. And you need testosterone levels almost male level, right? In order to do this, you almost need, a cc of cypionate a week or cream to give you a nice level protection all the time, 24/7. And I mean, it's just like a miracle. I mean, they call me up and tell me about it every few months, and but it's not being done. Anyway, to go on to advantages of these hormones.
Right,
okay,
hold on.
Yeah.
We'll take a break, and then we'll dive back in a moment. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hi, it's Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Did you know all it takes is one stress, one accident, or one illness to trigger PTSD? Did you know that all the stress associated with the pandemic has created what I call the new global PTSD pandemic stress syndrome? And don't be so quick to say, I don't have PTSD, because many conditions like depression, anxiety, pain syndrome, sleep disorders, and sexual dysfunctions are actually PTSD in disguise. And don't be fooled. Even after the pandemic is behind us, your PTSD will not go away by itself. Don't despair. In my latest book, If You Think You Don't Have PTSD, Think Again, I share a simple, research-backed, drug-free remedy for reversing the global PTSD pandemic stress syndrome. This is a solution your doctor doesn't likely know about. Read If You Think You Don't Have PTSD, Think Again today, and be on the road to recovery right away.
If You Think You Don't Have PTSD, Think Again became a #1 international bestseller within 24 hours of its publication. Grab your copy on Amazon and find out why.
Love Never Dies is now on the Dream Vision 7 radio network every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Dr. Jamie Turndorf, also known as Dr. Love, is the #1 international best-selling author of Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased. If you're grieving the loss of a loved one, tune in and find out how to reconnect and heal any unfinished business using Dr. Turndorf's groundbreaking new Dialoguing with the Departed technique. Visit AskDrLove.com to find out more.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
You're listening to Love Never Dies with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. If you can't stop crying over the bodily loss of a loved one, Dr. Turndorf's #1 international bestseller, Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased, will show you how to toss out the tissues and transform your grief into joy using her groundbreaking new Dialoguing with the Departed technique that enables you to reconnect and even heal unfinished business with those in spirit without the assistance of a medium, channeler, or psychic. Sign up for Dr. Love's free newsletter at AskDrLove.com and receive an exciting gift, a free excerpt of Love Never Dies. And now, back to Love Never Dies with Dr. Jamie Turndorf.
Hello again. Welcome back to the new Ask Dr. Love Radio. We're talking with my good friend Robert Yoho about hormone replacement and his great new book, which is so accessible, easy to read, Hormone Secrets, very filled with his research, but yet not hyper technical. You're going to have no problem at all. So Robert, you were going to tell us something before the break.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and list the advantages of various hormones, and I'll just run through it quickly, and it may seem like too much, but this thing has 500 academic references. So, and in the ebook, this is a passion project. I don't make a dime on this. And I sell about 30 books a day, but I know that doesn't sound like much to you.
Sounds like
doesn't sound like much to Dr. Jamie Turndorf, but it's a break even, you know, with the what I pay the Amazon ads and anyway. So estradiol or estrogen is the most dramatic hormone in my opinion. So it just listen to this stuff. It helps the heart more than any other hormone. It decreases the risk of cataracts, vaginal atrophy, and macular degeneration, reduces the chance of stroke, diabetes, colon cancer, Alzheimer's, memory problems, and osteoporosis, cures hot flashes, and improves sexuality. Here's a quote to get the human interest from a woman writing in the LA Times in 1999. She said, "I could live without my husband, children, or cats, but I could never live without my beloved estrogen." So
I thought she was going to say her vibrator, but I guess
no. Well, it all fits together somehow, right?
Exactly, literally, right?
Okay, so progesterone, and this seems like an overreach to just list all this stuff, but I have references for everything I say. Oh, you know, lots of references. Progesterone in proper doses helps sleep, hot flashes, depression, anxiety, irritability, migraine headaches, decreases breast and nipple tenderness, and because of the estrogen, that's the estrogen dominant thing you were talking about. And it lowers the risk of heart disease, reduces breast and ovarian cancer. And I mean, it's a benefit in treating breast cancer. So it suppresses ovarian cancer. And the testosterone, strength increases, cholesterol falls, weight loss is progressive. Testosterone is the best weight loss drug we have ever had. It's far better over the long term. And we have studies going out 10 years in men, and they show a linear decrease in weight over that time period if they do nothing but take testosterone. Sexuality improves, morning erections return, for example, heart disease risk decline, diabetes and migraine headaches get better and sometimes are cured. Decreases anxiety, improves mood. I mean, everybody thinks about testosterone as producing aggression in men, but certainly for older men, it makes you feel more even. Intellectual testing is improved. Earlier death with lower levels. It's also lower levels are correlated with coronary disease. So now there are other hormones that are supposedly minor, but I'm going to mention them just so, okay. So melatonin is freaking harmless, and you got to use long-acting melatonin to make it work. Otherwise, it only hangs around. If you buy the over-the-counter variety, it only hangs around for an hour. It's a potent antioxidant, cleans things up, and I mean, some people just love it. And you can take up to 100 milligrams a night of the long-acting variety, which sounds like an awful lot, but it's absolutely harmless. Now, just as a side note, I hate this stuff. It screws my sleep up, but most people do very well with it, and it has health effects. Your listeners probably know a lot about vitamin D because it's been discussed in, okay, so if you take enough vitamin D to get your levels up to near 100, you have a decreased chance of all kinds of diseases, and the death rates with COVID have been shown to be improved. Now, I actually want to just put a caveat on that. We don't know that taking vitamin D improves your death rate, but we do know that having a higher vitamin D level is correlated with much lower death rates for both COVID and everything else. So I hope that your readers can understand that quick distinction, but it's not clearly causal. So, and DHEA is like a mild testosterone in a pill. It energizes, enhances mood, decreases joint pain, which is a huge thing for these older women who've been treated with higher doses. And our group now sometimes prescribes DHEA in doses up to 600 milligrams for women into their 70s and 80s, and they freaking gets rid of their joint pain. It's amazing. This is unconventional. Talk to your doctor and all that is the usual caveat.
By the way, I was doing some research on melatonin, and I came across a lot of research that it treats chronic stress disorders. It does blood pressure and autonomic cardiovascular regulation, immune system regulation, retinal function, detoxification of the free radicals, and the antioxidant actions you mentioned. It's unbelievable. Even there was a study I came across of bone mass regulation and cancer, alleviating GERD, reversing kidney damage from cancer.
It's over the counter. It's over the counter. Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's an absolute wonder.
You can get the long-acting form over the counter. You can either get it as a prescription from a compounding pharmacy, or you can buy the long-acting kind yourself from lifeextension.com or nutriscriptives.com. Either one has, and so it's a little more expensive, but it actually works. And
but
then
you
there's
don't like it because it screws up your body clock.
Everybody's individual, and for me, that one gives you vivid dreams. Most people don't mind it. They find them entertaining. But for me, I'd wake up with some bizarre dream, and it bothered me. So not everybody tolerates it, and I've experimented with it for weeks or months at a time, and taking progressively larger doses. It does knock me out for a while, but then I wake up so I'm not saying listen to me, my individual experience. Let's look at the entirety of our.
For you, it sounds like the transdermal magnesium is going to be just the ticket.
I'm hoping that was not a fluke last night.
Oh, it was not a fluke.
I slept all the way through, and
not a fluke. Like I said, that state trooper I knew who hadn't slept in 14 years, that was it. He slept.
Yeah. I just got it on my hands and the back of my hands because I rubbed my wife's feet with it, and she slept through too. So
there you go.
Those are a couple of anecdotes. What you want to do is
put it on your calves and your soles, the cream, and then spray the Electra spritz oil over the cream, and it works like a time release sleep aid.
So the last hormone we should mention is human growth hormone, or HGH. Now that stuff has been rendered almost impossible to prescribe. It's so expensive in the United States, and it should be as cheap as insulin, as ordinary insulin. Insulin has also been rendered very expensive to the point where people are rationing the stuff if they have to pay cash for it, and are dying because they get the metabolic problems of the diabetics need insulin to survive. But and there have been rumors started by the FDA that it's associated with cancer, which are total nonsense. We have these studies of 8,000 patients, and it's not associated with cancer. But this stuff may be the best hormone of all, but we have less experience with it than the other ones. And it's been around. All these things have been around for, 50 to 80 to 120 years. And our experience with these drugs is enormous, and they're tremendously beneficial. And I mean, I don't feel like I can afford growth hormone. I mean, it's several $1,000s a month. I mean, it's ridiculous.
But, if you have the right levels of all the other stuff, and you know what, actually, I think I've read research that the transdermal the magnesium stimulates growth hormone and ATP production. So you could get it through the back door using that Electra. Can you believe we only have a minute left? Our
I can't.
Flies. I always enjoy having you so much. Make sure, please, in the last minute to tell everybody your parting message and how to find you.
Well, the first parting message is I'm sometimes regarded as negative about medicine in general. And I want to reiterate that that miracles are to be found in medicine every day. And there, even though about half of it doesn't work or is actually harmful, there are many miracles to be found. How to get a hold of me is robertyohoauthor.com, robertyohoauthor.com. And my books are available anywhere books are sold, and the ebooks are $4 or $5 on Amazon. You can click right through the links. So Jamie, thank you so much for having me on. I didn't realize you were such a big celebrity the last time. Maybe I'm a little nervous this time.
Oh yeah. And that prevented you from being brilliant as always. I loved having you. It was really wonderful. And we'll keep the conversation going. So everybody reach out to Robert. He's here to help you. He's come straight from a pure place. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.